Hey everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and we're now going to talk about tennis now. And yes, it's been a while since I last did a tennis video, but this video we're going to talk about Rafael Nadal, his imminent return to the tennis tour and the ongoing tournaments in his path leading up to Roland Garros and attaining Grand Slam number 21, which in my personal opinion will end up making him the greatest ever tennis player. Now, the last time we saw him, of course, was at the quarterfinals of the Australian Open when he lost in that epic 5-set match against Stefanos Tsitsipas. I was very critical of him at the time because, of course, he was 2 sets up and completely dominating the match before letting Tsitsipas back in the match to come back from victory. Now, since then, he, of course, has pulled out of both Rotterdam and Miami, of course, and a lot of people completely understood that because of the quarantine issues as well. And bearing in mind now that Nadal is now 35, I believe, this year as well. So, of course, now for many years now, he's been managing his schedule better, focusing and prioritising on the tournaments that matters most. And we would expect that as well. We've seen that from Federer and recently from Djokovic as well. So no surprises on here. But we're going to just look at the tournament for his clay court schedule and overall which events that we think he will play in, which events he'll miss, which events that he should select for going ahead into Roland Garros. So if we just take a look now quickly at the revised schedule for the clay court season. So the first tournament, of course, is Monte Carlo. As we all know, that's the first event of the clay court season. And looking at the ATP Tour schedule, the event is due to take place on the 11th of April to the 18th. So that'll be the first event. And then after that, we have Barcelona, which is the 500 ATP event taking place from the 19th to the 25th of April. Shortly after that, we have Madrid, the next Masters, from the 2nd of May to the 9th of May. And then we have Rome after that as well, taking place on the 11th of May. And then shortly after that, we will then come to Roland Garros, which was recently announced has been postponed a week. So that will now take place on the 30th of May going through to the 13th of June. And there's a bit of a controversy surrounding that because, of course, it shortens the window between the clay court season and the grass court season. And that's really the most toughest adjustment for many players to make because you have such a short space of time to make the change in between two very different surfaces. So that's the overall schedule that is facing Nadal going forward to Roland Garros. Now, when we look at the events overall, which ones do we think he'll play? Well, we know that he is scheduled to appear in the Monte Carlo. This is no surprise. He's had such a great record over there. I believe he's won that tournament 9 times overall. So it's no surprise that he has decided to take on that tournament. Now, I think we can all safely say that gone are the days when Nadal plays all of the clay court tournaments and wins all of them. I think the last time he did that, I think it might have been 2010 when he managed to sweep all of the tournaments within the clay court season, including Roland Garros as well. Now, gone are those days, despite the fact that he's had such a unfathomable record on the surface overall. I don't think we're going to see that this time as well, as I mentioned before, because of his age now, and he wants to rest his body and make sure he's in prime physical condition for the slams, because that is what matters the most. So I think he will probably play Monte Carlo. He'll probably skip Barcelona, and then he'll probably take a pick between Madrid or Rome. I think he probably will play Rome and leave Madrid. That's what I think, because he hasn't been quite as successful in Madrid as what he has been overall in the tournament. So it would be ideal really to have a first participation now and then give yourself a week or two. Again, we have to take into account the quarantine, etc., and then have a more recent participation in Rome before leading up to Roland Garros. So that would be, I think, the most ideal strategy in terms of combating the clay court season this year for Nadal. Again, we don't know what he will decide to do, depending on any potential injury that may flare up when he participates in this tournament. If he gets a slight knock or injury in Monte Carlo, then who knows, he may pull out early in that tournament to make sure he's fully rested and prepared for Roland Garros. Because let's be honest here, Roland Garros is what matters the most. I've said in multiple videos throughout my tennis coverage that the ultimate decider in this never-ending race for the greatest of all time are the slams. I've had multiple arguments and discussions with people on my video who is the tennis greatest of all time within 2021. I will leave a link for that video in the description. But there I talk about who will be deemed the greatest within 2021. And I've had a lot of primarily Djokovic fans put forward their case about why Novak is the greatest now, and my ultimate argument always has been the barometer is the slams. That is ultimately what will decide who is the greatest ever. So in terms of that, that's why I believe we won't see Rafa play all of the clay court tournaments, and I would say out of the four given leading up to this tournament, I think he'll play two. And again, it will depend on how quickly or how well he performs, how much energy he exerts. If he manages to win Monte Carlo very easily, let's say if all of the main threats, I think primarily you're probably talking about Novak, of course, and maybe TM as well on this service. If they go out early and he manages to face lesser competition and doesn't exert too much energy overall, then perhaps he may add more tournaments to his schedule on the clay. But moving on to Roland Garros now, and of course if he does manage to win that tournament, it will of course be his 14th victory at Roland Garros, and most significantly, of course, it will give him the Grand Slam 21 and finally put him for the first time ahead of Roger Federer in the overall Grand Slam race. And for me, and I know this will cause debate amongst many fans, but this will ultimately decide and make him, I think, greatest of all time within the tennis. Now, he's got overall records, and I'll probably discuss this if he does achieve that milestone. I will go over in more explicit detail all of his records and achievements overall. But I think in particular, if he can win Roland Garros, and more importantly, throughout this clay court schedule, score a couple of wins over Novak as well, because I think the current head-to-head stands at 29-27 for Novak Djokovic, and of course that's another deciding factor as well. When we talk about who is the greatest of all time, it's the head-to-head against your biggest rivals and other opponents. So I think that's another factor that Nadal needs to address, is the head-to-head against Novak, because again, that is something that could be used in any overall debate about who is the greatest ever. So if he can score a couple of victories over Novak in the tournaments leading up to the Roland Garros and then beat Novak again, obviously that will be an eventual final if we get to that stage and both players make it through the rounds. If he can score another victory in the final against Novak, just like he did last year, then again that will boost his case as well for the greatest of all time. I firmly do believe that if he doesn't succumb to any injury and he builds up good form and momentum, I really think he will win Roland Garros again. Primarily because of what happened last year. Of course, we had all the delays due to COVID. Roland Garros was rescheduled for September at the time. Everybody was worried because it was that much later. You didn't have all of the heat conditions as well, and it was played largely indoors. So many people felt this would take away a lot of Rafa's ability to perform on the surface. Of course, he had very little in terms of lead-up play, primarily only playing 2 matches in Rome, I believe, before losing to Schwartzman in the quarterfinals as well. But he still managed to blitz his way through the tournament and defeat Novak in the final in 3 straight sets. So if he can build up much more match play and still go into the tournament physically and 100% fit, then I really can't see anybody stopping him, not even Novak. Maybe he might take a set of him in the final, but I think overall Rafa will prevail as long as he's physically fit. Again, just like I did with the Australian Open, I will produce videos giving my overall predictions, particularly as we go through to the quarters and the semi-finals and the finals as well. So this is really just a big summary, just going through the overall path that I think Rafael Nadal will take in terms of his clay court schedule, and then leading on to Roland Garros, and if he can get to Grand Slam 21, and then that will overall, I think, make him the greatest of all time. Of course, we don't know what will happen with the rest of the tour in terms of Wimbledon and US Open as well. So the whole dynamic and debate could change shortly after Rafa if he does manage to get 21. And I'll, of course, provide further coverage if we get any significant turns in the eventual debate over the greatest of all time as well. But those are my overall thoughts and feelings of Rafael Nadal's path in terms of his clay court schedule, and hopefully attaining Grand Slam 21 and greatest of all time glory. Now, I will cover in general, the Masters tournaments overall, in terms of who wins the tournaments, and of course, as I mentioned before, I will give overall predictions where we eventually come to Roland Garros overall. And if there are any other big significant headlines or effects in terms of tennis, then I'll provide coverage for those as well. So please also hit those like and subscribe buttons and notifications so I can provide you with more coverage in the future. I will leave links to previous tennis videos that I've done in the past as well. If you have any further suggestions and feedbacks, any other aspects of the sport that you would like me to cover, please also drop a line in the comments as well. I will leave links to also my social media, which you can contact me as well on this channel. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.